Fog machine. It should be there. You just hit the button, James.
Somebody tell me where our hosts are?
Yeah.
What?
I felt scared that you could hear me chewing.
I heard like a hum.
Wyatt on set.
Alright, let's get this done.
Roll camera. Roll sound.
Season 1, Episode 10, Marker.
Action. Welcome to All the Hats, a podcast about filmmaking and industry.
Hello and welcome to All the Hats Pod, a podcast about filmmaking and industry. I'm James Gary.
And I'm Eric with a K.
Nice to be back. This time we're going to talk about something we kind of brushed on like 2 episodes ago, and that's pitching. So if you don't know what pitching is, it's like when you go up to someone and you pitch an idea that you have. So I was talking about in an episode previously, we were talking about me telling you my ideas. And I could probably put a flashback in here to that episode, and it's probably going to show a little bit more than what I revealed in that episode, because we cut some stuff out. So you can listen to it right now, and here it goes.
But over the last couple of months, you've pitched me a bunch of ideas. I'll just be doing anything, making coffee or whatever, and you walk in first thing in the morning, pitch me an idea without even telling me you're about to pitch me an idea. And I'm like, what? What? And then you just walk away. It's just an idea I had. That's what you say as you walk away.
So one I had just recently was what if there were no prisons, and you just erase the person who did a horrible thing's mind, set them up with someone to take care of them until they can get back on their feet. They won't remember anything.
If your mind's erased and you don't know what there was beforehand to have lost, therefore you're just new. But the people who had to suffer the consequences of this person's actions, they have to continue to suffer the rest of their lives.
And that would make a good story, because you can explore all that.
Well, that you could.
Why did you say it like that?
I don't know. It's
I'm
just
not
weird,
saying that this is reality.
It's weird.
I'm not saying it's reality.
I'm just trying to find the plot holes here of just the idea. I know it's just an idea.
What if the story is that someone is? What if the story is that someone is seeking revenge in this world that doesn't put people in prison anymore? Mm-hmm. So they're going after this person who doesn't know they did something wrong.
See, well, now you pitch it like that, it makes it a much better idea and story.
No, it's the same idea.
Well, no, you just added to the idea.
There could be a lot of ideas added to that.
Well, then you should write them down and then repitch it with all those ideas.
What you should be, when I pitch something, what you should be doing is, I wonder how that could play out.
It's not really how it works.
Because that's what I'm thinking.
That's what you're thinking, but that's not exactly how it works.
What?
When you pitch something, you need to give everything. You gotta give
I don't want to give everything.
Okay, we're moving on. We're moving on, because this is going to go nowhere real fast. Anyway. It's interesting that there are people out there who claim that not to have inspiration when it comes to writing. It's just something that they have ideas about, and they're not inspired by. They're just sitting there thinking of nothing, and then poof, something, and they start writing it. And not that those ideas are any good, but it's always been weird to me when someone tells me that nothing really inspires them, because I'm like, how do you write then? Because you have to be inspired by something. Even if you don't know you're inspired by something, you're likely inspired by something.
Yeah, there's another thing I've been thinking about.
Oh, great.
Don't worry, this isn't prison or anything. Okay. It's less ethic-based. And it's very general. Mm-hmm. So you know how there's quantum tethering, right? Mm-hmm. So one particle can be tethered to another particle. And it's very general. I'm not sure I know all the details, because there could be details I just don't know about, because I'm not a scientist. But so basically, when one quark, I guess, spins up, the other one spins down, right?
Right.
So they're linked. So when one goes up, one goes down. When one goes down, one goes up. Mm-hmm. So in knowing that, is it possible to make a tiny spaceship that can go light speed because it's small, having particles that are tethered to something that's on Earth. It goes all the way across to wherever you want it to go, and then you build a gate out of those quantum tethered molecules or whatever they are, quarks, molecules. I think that could be interesting.
So this would be
an interesting start to a story. You know what I'm saying? Like something that could open up possibilities, and it's based on quotation marks reality.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of theory,
Yeah.
in reality in regards to what happens when you are going light speed, or if you can go light speed, and it jumps so many different places. Like just bending reality, or jumping back in the past or into the future, or all that kind of stuff. Opening wormholes. There's all kinds of different theories about it.
But it, like, theory or not, something smaller is easier to go faster because it's not having as much to carry.
Yeah, I think
It'd be easier to send a small rocket into space than a
I
large
think
one.
it's
Less energy is spent.
I think maybe I agree. There's less energy spent, but at the same time, like these are just things like that might kind of go against using something small. And one is like lack of fuel. I mean, if we're not using fuel, we're using
There's the solar winds.
right. Well, and that's another problem. Is,
Solar winds are going light speed. As far as I know, solar winds are going light speed, and if you can capture those winds and they're pulling you, it won't immediately get you going quick, right?
Right. So it's a build up over time.
Slowly, it would build up over time as you're going through space. You can have an initial start that gets you going to the speed that we can go, and then use the solar winds to carry us even faster.
I mean,
over a period of time.
If you can find a way to manipulate solar winds in order to power it, then maybe. But still,
that's already a thing.
The problem is something that small. It doesn't take much to throw it off course because there's no weight to it. I mean, you just see it, for example, outside. A heavy object is going to stay put. Something lighter may be blown over, by the wind or whatever. And I think that's something else you need to take into consideration when factoring the size of your spaceship in space. It's just what other elements are there that can potentially throw it off course or just destroy it.
Yeah.
And something heavier, bigger in particular, may withstand a whole lot more than something small.
Or make it where it can course correct and get back on
exactly right.
its target.
Right.
So it has a small computer somehow, like an iPhone
Just put an iPhone
size computer.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. That's something that'd be
And these are
interesting to
particles,
visit,
so they don't even necessarily need a spaceship. If you can blast them off at a fast speed, they're going to make it to their destination. Just the particles. If they're tethered, you can do something with them.
Yeah.
If
because
there's a way to manipulate how they're reacting with the world around them from far away. The only thing is you won't be able to see it. So
yeah,
it's really
I don't know. You wouldn't be able to see it, and there's a lot of things that still factor in.
There would have to be a computer program that makes the things do what you need them to do, so they can start working on something or building something or coming together to form something that you need wherever they land.
Yeah.
But I like to. It's more fun to me to base things a little bit in reality, than to just make up something random.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think something that's based on live science helps to build structure around whatever it is you're trying to do, even if it's like way out of this world sci-fi type of story. Having it grounded at least in some type of reality just makes the story that much more strong and plausible. Like this could be something in the future. Interstellar, I mean, it's probably one of my favorite movies, and a lot of that is grounded in reality. But it takes place, like the idea of it would take place so many centuries ahead of our time, or beyond our time, that it's just, it's plausible, but right now it's not reality, but it's cool.
And we're back. You have anything to say about it?
Well, here's the thing. Like, it got a little heated. You're bringing it up, and I think we were on two very different pages at the time. We talked about it after the fact, and the reason that, like, I questioned it so much was because I'm coming at it from a pitcher standpoint or a producer standpoint.
Yeah.
Where you're coming at it as just telling a friend an idea.
Yeah.
You know, so we were very much off page on that. But one thing that I want to like really clarify then, since we didn't clarify it then, is that when you're pitching to a producer in your studio or whoever it is, and you're looking for financing, if your primary goal is to finance your film, you're going to have to pitch it to somebody. And by doing that, you're going to have as much information and detail as possible with your story. Preferably, you'd even have a finished script. Now, there are cases where there's ideas that are pitched.
Or treatment.
Or
a lot of people use treatments.
Yeah, you got treatments, outlines, all kinds of things, in the hopes that the studio will come along and back you and even help you tell the story or write the story. But the majority of people pitching out there have a relatively polished, if not fully polished script when they're pitching. So when I asked you, or I was mentioning how there seems to be plot holes, the fact that it almost seems as if the bad guys, the criminals, are in a way getting a free ticket out of the suffering or the guilt while keeping those who are victims continually in that guilt was a bit of an issue for me originally. And we talked about it.
Yeah.
But that's something you want to mention or bring up during the pitch with the producer. You want to fill all that out. They're going to ask you questions. You need to have answers for them. So,
and I feel like, from my perspective, like most stories probably should start with something dark or something not so good for the good guys, in order to have something to solve or somewhere to go. Otherwise, it's just everything's good and dandy from beginning to end, and you just...
Yeah, you have to have obstacles in your protagonist's way. There needs to be a story arc or a character arc that's going to help lead that character from point A to point B, then point B to point C, you know? And we see that in the majority of films. Now, there are films where it is just kind of fun and dandy. Those are mostly kids' films that I've come across where they're like that, or TV shows. But even some of those, you know? So Inside Out is a good example of that type of character arc. It starts off, you know, fun and good, and then something bad happens, and the protagonist needs to work through the issues, and not just the issues that are happening around her, but also those that are within her too. She finds out that she's maybe too happy, too overzealous about stuff, and that could be a problem potentially if you're constantly blocking out other emotions, you know. And that's something that, again, isn't necessarily bad in, I think, a way that you were stating, but it's still bad in the sense that in reality, if we block out certain emotions, those emotions build up and can ultimately cause other problems in the future within yourself, stress or anxiety, depression, things like that, that tend to build up and become much worse later on.
But you could see in that story, you could see that the sadness was taking over even the good ideas and the good, happy ideas.
Right. And so
everything the sadness touched became blue. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think, like, for a movie like that, it's kind of showing the balance or the harmony between everything, you know? Like, you shouldn't be sad all the time if you can help. I mean, obviously, depression's a real thing out there, you know? It's something that a lot of Americans deal with, a lot of the world even. But being happy all the time and just allowing yourself to constantly be happy and push other emotions away is also bad or unhealthy. And I think the movie does a good job of showing why, you know, going from one extreme to the other is not a good thing. You need to have that healthy balance and allow yourself to feel.
I think most of life is about balance anyways. And I think that should show up in your scripts.
I agree.
Or your plots. Mm-hmm. What? No. Your pitches. We were trying to bring it back around. Show up in your pitches where you have things being taken to an extreme, and you know your plot is taking you either to the other extreme and then trying to find a balance between them. You know, I think that's most stories, anyways.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure there's some that aren't, but most stories have, you know, something going to an extreme,
right,
and then flip flopping to the other extreme, and then balancing out.
Unless
is
you're
the
like
best.
the Saw franchise or something like that, it's just
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Unless it ends bad, which is also a way you can go. Like, obviously, ending bad could shed light on things also. It could be a good thing to show how things can go very negative.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for sure.
okay. So, from school, they talked to us about pitching. The leader of the school, I don't know what you call it, but he's made some films and all that. But he pretty much started the school. He pitched to the class, like he pitched an idea to the class. I don't remember what the idea is anymore. It was like so long ago. But he like brought his phone out and played some music, and he pitched to the music, and it sounded so great. Like, I just remember just being wowed by, his ability to pitch an idea so well that it felt like even the music was themed with the idea. And it was just great. And it went along to the music too, what he was saying. So he obviously had practiced that over and over and over again and knew exactly. It's like he was acting out a play in front of us to sell his idea. I don't think I would be able to necessarily go to that extreme because I'm not really that kind of person. But if you can do that, if you're very theater oriented and you just know how to like express yourself in that type of way, then yeah, definitely that's probably the best way you can pitch is
pitching,
doing everything, practicing it over and over and over in the mirror, in a microphone, whatever you can do.
No, I agree. Pitching really is an art in and of itself, aside from writing or just filmmaking in general. And it is something that's practiced on a daily basis and sometimes for hours on end. So pitching can be more than just the words you use, more than just the story you're telling. You can be using visuals. It can be pictures, drawings, charts, whatever is going to help you to relay the story to whoever your viewer is. And in most cases, that's going to be a producer or whatever.
Like use whatever gift you have. So if you're really good at drawing and you can do storyboards and stuff, like use that. If you're
for
good
sure.
at singing.
No, you're right.
You
Singing is you're right. The Greatest Showman. It's one of my favorite movies. Hugh Jackman was on board long before any company was on board, any studio, and so he actually had a problem with his throat. He had an illness that prevented him from talking. He wasn't supposed to talk, but he was a big part of the pitch, and he decided last minute that he's going to go with the writers to pitch the story to the studio. And even though he was told by his doctor not to sing, he still ended up singing and risking his voice just to try to get, the story made, produced. And it worked. He walked in, he sang his part, and the producers were like, let's do this, and that's one of those stories that they were trying to get made for a while. But it goes to show that if you're willing to put in the work and take a chance, then it's going to help you in the long run. Because can you imagine walking into a studio and pitching a musical without any music? And, it doesn't quite work. I don't think. So having whatever you can to help strengthen your pitch and tell your story, the better off you're going to be.
And I would suggest having your pitch laid out in such a way that you can get to a hook and then kind of feel how they're reacting, especially if you have a short amount of time to actually, like an elevator pitch. Mm-hmm. You have a short amount of time, you get to that hook, you see if they're hooked. If they're not, you can just be like, okay, I get that they're not interested.
Absolutely.
And then you can just move on. And then, or if they're like, keep it coming. Or if you can just kind of see that they're interested or they're paying attention, then, continue. If that's elevator. Obviously, if you're standing in front of somebody's desk and you're there to pitch the whole thing.
Right.
But if you're just seeing somebody important on the street.
Yeah.
Somebody.
I've done that a few times with some of my stories where I'll give them a quick pitch, but I won't give them the whole thing. Even if I had the time to, I'll just give them the hook and I'll wait or I'll walk away. And the majority of the time, if it's a good hook, they'll be like, okay, what happens next?
Yeah.
and then you're in. Like, okay, let's do this, and hopefully,
And sometimes you can see that on their face.
Oh,
They
yeah,
don't
for sure.
necessarily have to say.
oh yeah,
say
no,
it,
for
but
sure, for sure.
You can be like, you can see that they're like interested in what you're saying.
Yeah. But with that said, I think one thing that's important, maybe even more important than that hook, is how you end it.
Yeah.
Because if you have that hook and you draw them in, but you end on a flat note, well, they're going to register that flat note a lot stronger than the hook. And they're like, oh, okay, you know?
Yeah, anytime you write a story or come up with a story, it's good to have the end in mind anyways, because your ending is very important. Now, personally, when I watch a film, the ending's not personally something I care about. I enjoy a journey personally. So if everyone dies at the end, like it matters. I'm not saying it doesn't, but if everyone dies at the end, if I enjoyed the whole journey, then I love the film. You know, it doesn't really matter to me. I know most people are like, if the ending's, sad or whatever, they hate it, but
well, I mean, and I get it. I understand it to a point as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're right. I think if the majority of the story or just the whole of the story is good, the journey's good, then regardless of what happens in the end. Now, there are movies that I've watched recently that I'm like, why?
the ending should make sense.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be something that's like out of place.
Right.
I'm not trying to say that.
No, for sure. I watched, I think it was Into the Dark or something like that. I think it was called. I told you about it a few weeks back, but it's about a movie, or is a movie about.
Is it the Thanksgiving one?
No.
Oh, this is something different.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Was it In the Dark? There's so many movies out now with, or so many things out with the dark. Yeah, I know. But it was a movie. If anyone knows the answer to this question, because I don't have my phone on me and I'm not going to look it up. But there is a movie. It was about a mother whose child gets taken by a wolf, supposedly. And she ends up writing a letter to a wolf expert to come out and find the wolf who took the kid and to kill said wolf.
Yeah.
And it turns out to be this mysterious, like, weird plot that has nothing to do with wolves, but it's actually like an occult type thing that this woman and her husband were a part of. And for the most part, I was hoping, like the entire film, I was hoping it'd get better and better. And in some sense it did, but then it ended on such a flat note where there was just like,
the kid's back. Wow.
you don't know what happened. Like it just ends and
You don't even know what happened.
your antagonist goes one direction, the protagonist goes the opposite, and then that's it. And there's no conclusion. And it's just like, I hope it, I mean, obviously a movie like that I don't think it would have a second film, not the way that it ended and the way it proceeded, but
I kind of get annoyed by that. I don't think you should ever write a film in hopes of a second film. I don't care if it's Star Wars or anything. Mm-hmm. I think that's what Marvel pulls off. Like a film can be individual. Mm-hmm. Like whenever they write a film, like for any of those characters, that film can stand alone. You can watch it by itself and it still can bring that experience to you.
Yeah.
That full movie experience. But when they're like trying to connect all these other films and they make that the center point, that's what you get when you get DC. When they're trying to like
connect everything.
Kind of say there's going to be a future film here, future film there,
Mm-hmm.
future film there, and they're trying to tie all these characters in.
Yeah.
And it just kind of loses something. It loses like that singular film magic.
Yeah. And in the long run, loses momentum too. Because if one film sucks and it's going to tie into another film, then what's the point of watching the next film?
The first Star Wars, that was supposed to be a singular film. It wasn't supposed to be as
big as it became. Right.
There weren't supposed to be two more films after it. They wrote it as a singular film, and that's why it did so well.
Yeah.
And these last 3 Star Wars, they're writing them as if there's more coming. And look how well they're doing. I mean, they're doing well because they are Star Wars.
Right.
But like if they weren't Star Wars.
A name is everything sometimes.
If they weren't Star Wars, they wouldn't do well.
Right.
I mean, I don't think they're horrible, but I actually enjoyed both Star Wars. But the newest ones, which I think a lot of people don't like the newest one. But
which one's the newest one? The
Last Jedi.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you meant that, if you meant like Solo or something like that.
I mean, there's problems with The Last Jedi, but I mean, I purposely try to look past certain things just because, whatever. Some things are
there's
nitpicky.
always going to be something
Yeah.
in some film. I don't think there's such thing as a perfect film, despite what people say. But
Yeah. And we can get into that later.
we could.
But like when it comes to pitching, I don't know how we got so far off, but I just feel like I know that when you pitch, you should have the full idea, the ending especially. I mean, there might be some little plot points in the middle that aren't fully fleshed out when you're pitching, but like for the most part, you should have a full like beginning, middle, end idea, so that when you tell that story to someone, they can get the full story.
Right.
A shortened version, but the story.
Right. And not just the plot, but the characters too.
Yeah.
That's super important.
That's what
And
people
not even
connect
just
to.
your main character. Your supporting characters are just as important too.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they're supporting characters. They're going to help the main character in some way throughout the film, whatever that is. I mean, there's been so many different ways people view supporting characters. But yeah, it's just something else to remember. It's not just a story, because like the story is one thing, but the story is about whoever it is that's your character. That your character is that main focus. And I personally think that any story should be character driven. I think those are the type of stories that at least I personally tend to enjoy the most.
Yeah.
If it's just all action all the time and it's all plot driven, I can get bored, unless it's something like Expendables, where it's like, oh man, all these action guys are from when I was a kid and now are fighting and doing crazy stuff. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's fun, but at the same time, it's kind of a one watch thing. I won't watch it more than once. So
There's no reason to really go back because there's nothing more you can get out of it.
right.
It's just unless you want to play it in the background or something.
Well,
Yeah.
because
It has cool music along with the fighting or
Right.
something. So I think we should probably finish up. So I think in closing, the most important thing is you can pitch to a friend. It's not the same thing. You can kind of just have general ideas and just talk things out and figure things out. I think that's okay. But when you're pitching to someone who you're trying to get investment from, or just some sort of support, like say you're bringing someone onto your project and they're going to help you with a certain part of the project, and you want feedback from them in a certain area, such as sound or picture or something like that, and you want them along with you initially, even before before you write the script necessarily. Sometimes indie films work that way. You have certain people you work with, so you should have a full fleshed out idea when you pitch to people that are going to be important to your making of the thing you're pitching. But if you're talking to a friend, feel free to have like a small idea or whatever. I think that was our miscommunication earlier on. But I think I should just say goodbye.
That's it. It's a
Goodbye,
good thing
guys.
to say.
See you later.
Bye.
And cut.
Good. Cut. All right. You make that one? Okay. So we'll go ahead and talk it.
That was simple.
Yeah, so
Same thing.
second team in.
Feel free to email us at allthehatspod@gmail.com.
And if you would like to check out our schedule or any other information about us, we are on facebook.com/allthehats.
And of course, be sure to stream us wherever you stream podcasts.